Attention. Due to the nature of the films discussed, the Civil Gore podcast may contain adult language and themes.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Civil Gore podcast. I am Tim.
And I am Brian, and it's part 2.
Part
but
2.
Not Friday the 13th part 2. Part 2 of our Friday the 13th retrospective.
Yeah, and this is going to be an overview of the franchise as a whole and just some other thoughts, just a continuation of the conversation we had last week. But first, we wanted to record our first chop and dismemberment for this week, so you guys would not be behind on that. So let's get right into that. Okay, so Brian, did you watch anything this week?
Did not get too much. Unfortunately, I've been trying to get prepped. I have some guests coming over to the house this week, so we're no, I'm not going to use that as an excuse. Just kidding. That didn't take that long. No, I've just been busy. I didn't really get to watch too much horror-related stuff, but I did actually. Well, I did watch part 6 and part 7. I kind of skipped ahead a little bit. Because we were talking so much about part 6 last time that I got really nostalgic for it, so I decided to jump right into that. And once I watched 6, I immediately had to watch 7. So that's really all I got to watch this week. And by saying just part 7, 6 and 7, I'm sure you know. I don't need to say which franchise, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I might have to pull out part 6 as well, just because we talked about it so much. And I remember having such fond memories of that movie.
Oh my, and it still holds up. I loved it just as much this time as I love it every time I watch it. It doesn't like lose anything to me. It's always just so much fun to watch.
Cool. Well, I started a new project, and Brian, if you know me, I start a lot of projects.
Yes.
And I do finish them. It might take me a while. It might take me a year, but I will finish my projects. And the reason I started this one is because as much fun as the Blu-ray project is, most of those movies that I buy, I have seen before and have probably seen many times before. So depending on what comes up on the roulette wheel, I might be watching several movies back to back that I've already seen before.
Oh, right.
And that can get a little boring. But, you know, part of the project is you have to watch the movie to refresh yourself. So yeah, I'm pretty strict about that. So what I decided to do was the Shockwaves podcast has a horror movie group on Facebook that I'm a member of. And they compiled a poll. They polled all the members of the Facebook group of the top 200 horror movies. And then they posted this list. And so what I did is I put all those in a spreadsheet because I love my spreadsheets. And basically all 200. And then, of course, I marked off the ones I had seen.
Well, you got to send me that, actually.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. I marked off the ones I had seen, and then I highlighted in red the ones I'd seen. I highlighted in green. The ones I had never seen, I highlighted in red. And then I went back through, and any movies that I had seen but have not seen in a long time, so maybe something I haven't seen in 15 or 20 years and didn't remember much about, I would highlight in yellow. And that's kind of my cue to go back and revisit it.
Look at that. You were serious about this. You got pivot tables going on.
Oh yeah, I get really involved. So I've got this big list, and I think out of the 200, there may be 30 or 40 that I really have never seen. And
that's a pretty good ratio, actually. That's only out of that, only 30, 40 out of 200. That's not bad.
Yeah, I did pretty good. Now, granted, a lot of these are very well-known films because it's a top 200 list, obviously. But still, I was pretty proud of that. And then, as far as the ones that I feel like I need to go revisit, there's probably another 20 to 30 more that I feel like I need a refresher on. So that's kind of my alternate to the backlog project. I've got the spreadsheet. I'm just kind of going through it. I'm starting at the bottom and working my way to the top because most of the ones I haven't seen are towards the bottom anyway. The first one that came out of that was The Innkeepers by Ty West.
Why do I know that? Did that just appear on Shudder or something?
It is on Shudder, and it's one I've been dying to watch for a long time. I mean, it's not a new movie by any means, and it's one of those ones that I've never gotten around to. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to watch that one of these days, and I just never get to it. But I'd heard nothing but good things, and it involves a haunted inn, a haunted hotel or whatever, and these two employees, one female, one male, that decide to investigate this ghost that supposedly haunts the inn. And
is his name Pipes too?
No, not Pipes, but it's actually a woman ghost. But
okay.
This movie is so much fun. It reminded me of, the best way I could describe it is like if you took like The Conjuring or Insidious or one of those movies that's like kind of super scary, haunting stories, but instead of the seriousness with which those movies operate, which is nothing against that, but the dread that they invoke, and kind of injected a lot of more fun into it. That's kind of what you would get. So there's I wouldn't say it's not even comedic fun. It's just a lightheartedness that's kind of hard to describe, but I really, really like this movie.
I want to say, is there a creepy looking character in it? Because I want to say I saw like a still from it, I thought, on on Shudder's Facebook page or something.
Yeah, there's definitely a creepy ghost in it.
Okay, yeah, because because once you said that with the Innkeepers, I like kind of one of those like a bing, in my head where I just saw something on it. So I'm wondering if Shudder just showcased it on their Facebook page or something.
Yeah, possibly. But it's a lot of fun. I'll definitely go take a look at it, because if you like the whole paranormal investigation stuff, which I know me and Brian do, then you would love this. Also, I picked up 3 Blu-rays at Target over the weekend because they were on sale for 3 for $11. I was like, sign me up. Which horror movies do you have?
These go to 11. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, they had 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, and The Crazies, and I didn't have any of these. So I've seen them all, of course, but I didn't own them. So it's like, yeah, for $11, why not? They all have commentaries, and they all have bonus features. So
it's funny with the 28 Days Later. When I first saw that, I remember I still remember I saw like a cool saw it when I was in Ireland, and they had like an early copy of it, like on home video out there, whatever it was, I guess DVD release at the time before it even barely came out in the United States. It was kind of cool to see. But the first thing I noticed about it is it obviously was not a direct sequel to the Sandra Bullock film, which was surprisingly good though, because I was expecting, I was kind of hoping the original one went that way, and it didn't. So it's kind of fun that it turned into this post-apocalyptic zombie film. But no, I'm just kidding, of course. But when it did come out, I literally, when I just saw it listed.
It was funny about that movie is I think that was the first movie I'd seen Cillian Murphy in, and
I forgot he's in that. That's right. He's
everybody. That's what I was gonna say, because I love him as an actor. I loved him in Peaky Blinders, and I think he's in that movie Red Eye.
Oh yeah, on the plane.
Yeah, he's been in a ton of stuff, and he's always been one of my favorite actors. And I didn't know who he was when I watched 28 Days Later. So it wasn't until literally years later that I realized he was in it.
Right, and it's like one of those things where you're like, you've seen him in something years later, and you don't know what it is, and then you forget about trying to figure out what it was. Then you see that movie again, but still don't remember that it's him, that you were trying to figure out who it was.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because he looked so different then, because was that his first film, right? It must have been, right?
I don't know, but he does look very, very different.
Very skinny in it. And,
very skinny, yeah.
And, and he doesn't have... I mean, I guess his hair was shorter, and it's, and since he's kind of acting there's this monotone acting, I guess he does in it, and he's such a good actor, he can do such a good range, so it's weird to see him so, like, I guess, stoic or something in that. So
well, yeah, a lot of his roles these days are kind of creepy.
Right. Even a Scarecrow when he was in Batman.
Yeah, they're kind of creepy, and he wasn't really creepy in this. He was the main guy. So
right.
I never put 2 and 2 together until I went back many years later and watched 28 Days Later again. I was like, oh my god, it's Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, we should definitely put that one on the calendar, that series to do.
That would be a good little double feature there.
Yeah, because I remember I loved the first one when I saw it for the first time. It was just so cool, and that was kind of right at the start of when zombie movies were really becoming that big resurgence again, wasn't it? Well, like, I don't think.
Yeah, that was one of the first ones that did the fast zombies.
Right, it was right. Yeah,
like that kind of introduced the concept of. There's probably somebody yelling at me that was not the first introduction of fast zombies. They ran in this movie, dude. Yeah, but it was definitely brought fast zombies into the mainstream, I think.
Yeah. And fast zombies are like, were so cool at the first time, because you're like, you see like Night of the Living Dead, the original one, and and you're like, oh come on, why can't they outrun these people? They're like good, they're like sludging along, and they're like taking them a half hour to open the door, and yet these, I'm like, and you'd be like, oh, if I faced these guys, I'd be gone in a second. They'd never catch me. And then they like ramp it up with these ones that like run at super speed, and like, and it just kept advancing to like, what was it, World War Z, where they like literally made a human zombie ladder wall or something.
Yeah.
Like 100 feet up. So yeah.
The last one was a backlog project title, and that was one I was not looking forward to because I actually remembered seeing this one way back in the day, and that was The Messengers from 2007, starring a young Kristen Stewart and Dylan McDermott.
I don't think I know that movie, actually.
Well, it's a very by-the-numbers, generic PG-13. I don't know that it's actually PG-13. I'm assuming it is from the content.
Probably just has that vibe, right?
I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, it's just one of those just so mainstream vanilla horror movies. You've heard the premise 1,000 times. Family moves into a new house, starts a new life. I think this time he's growing sunflowers. Is his thing.
Well, there's a twist, at least.
Yeah, and of course the house is haunted, and there's ghosts, and there's a little kid that sees the ghost. It's just, so generic.
There's got to be like a support group for all these single dads that move into these houses with all these problems, right? There's got to be one. I mean, they have them for just the single dads, but now they need to take it to that next level. The single dads with the haunted house.
Yeah, and Kristen Stewart does Kristen Stewart acting, the
troubled youth and pouty face.
Yeah, it's just it's really, it's not bad. I won't say it's bad. But it's just dull. It's just generic. There's better stuff to watch. But anyway, so
Curses of the Backlog Project. That's where it comes back to bite you.
Yeah, that one's that's one of the ones I got in a bundle pack thing. So it was kind of not my choice. It was.
So, you kind of had a good run there because your backlog project led to our summer slaycation thing because you got to, you started watching the Friday the 13th, you got there, and we kind of popped the idea in our heads, so.
Yeah, and what's funny is I always select the next two titles coming up, and I put them on my Blu-ray player, like, to show what's coming up next. It kind of keeps me motivated. And so...
You have like a now showing, like
yeah. Howl's just for a double feature. So coming up next is John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, nice.
Which is like the best of the best, and then the one after that is Night of the Demons bonus features.
Oh no, and that's
so
the one you couldn't
stand
already, and now you got to watch the bonus features of it.
Yeah, I think there's one little behind the scenes featurette and maybe some intro reel from Comic-Con. So. But the good news is it lets me get rid of Night of the Demons. So
that's true.
I'm kind of happy that's going to go away. So
there you go.
Anyway.
And that'll go right into the prize pack to whoever wins the contest.
along
with Paul Blart too that I have.
No, we won't do that to you.
No, okay.
It'll be something super cool. If I'm going to give away a prize, I guarantee you it's going to be super cool.
Yeah. You know what? We could actually, remember when I take you to that store when you're in New York with all those really like obscure, cool, like horror titles that you never see anywhere. Maybe we'll like buy one of those.
Yeah.
For the prize.
Yeah.
Like something that you would never like buy for yourself because it's one, you can't find it, or two, it's just no longer available and you can only find it in this kind of format or one of these stores that, the comic book stores that have it or something.
Yeah, we'll definitely get you something cool. So leave us an iTunes review and be entered into that contest.
Yes.
Okay, so we have Discmemberment for July 18th, and there's a couple of titles on here that I'm actually interested in. The first one up is called Another Evil. This is another one we may have mentioned on a previous episode, but it's a horror comedy about a guy that hires a quote-unquote industrial-grade exorcist.
That just made me laugh. I looked at it because you put it in quotes.
Yeah, to get rid of a ghost. And
so what, does he come in like overalls? He's industrial grade?
I don't know. Maybe he's related to that natural born
the
exorcist.
accidental, which I picked up, by the way. Oh. I picked that up at Best Buy. We were buying a new fan, actually, the other day, Best Buy, and as we were walking by, I because I can never go into Best Buy, no matter what I intend to buy there, whether it's not Tuesday to go Blu-ray releases or anything, I still have to, kind of pop my head over at the new releases, and that one was just sticking out like a sore thumb in the middle of everything. I'm like, okay, $9, all right, I guess I'll get it. We had so much fun talking about it, and
Yeah, you have to let me know how that one is.
Yeah. It was kind of like an accidental purchase at some level for the accidental Exodus. But
and then, of course, Kong Skull Island, which I can't wait to see.
Oh, I cannot wait to see that again.
I've already seen it, but I can't wait to see it on Blu-ray and take a look at the features and stuff.
Yeah, and that's one I'll probably make sure I put the digital copy right away on my iPad, so I have that to watch. Because I'll probably, like you said, I'll probably definitely want to see a bunch of special features on that. But also, I know I'm going to want to watch that, and it's like, on the TV with the surround sound right away again. Just get that scope that it had.
Next up is one called Karate Kill,
starring Ralph Macchio and Martin Cove.
Man, I wish. No. I'd watch it if it had Ralph Macchio in it. This is something about a mysterious loner and karate master. His little sister goes missing, and whoever stands in his way will face the wrath of Karate Kill. I put this on here because it was listed as an action horror movie, so we'll see. I just from the description, I'm betting it's a little light on the horror aspect, but maybe he kills them in interesting ways. So.
Right.
That one might be fun. This next one I have to get. Like the minute I saw the cover, I was like, I'm getting this. I don't care what. It's a double feature, which I love my double feature.
Yeah, you do.
I love my double features, especially of these old 70s movies. This is a pair of movies. One is from 1974 and one is from 1976. And to show my age, I was born in 74, so I'm keenly interested in movies from 1974. And it's called, the first one is The Night of the Sorcerers. And it's about a team of researchers who travel to Africa to study the disappearance of elephants. And instead they find a tribe of voodoo zombies who, and this is according to the description, rise from the ground, capture the women, whip them, and slice their heads off on an altar. And the women come back as vampires for revenge. Now, if that don't sound like a damn good movie to watch on Friday night, I don't know what does.
Yeah, and it's very involved. It's like in that description, it's like it pretty much like kind of like a checklist of things that happen to these people.
Like I don't want to look up reviews. I just want to watch that.
That one looks like
I don't want to know anything more about it. And then the next one is called the Laurel's Grasp. Laurel? I don't know.
Yeah,
1976. The legendary Laurel has been living for centuries in a grotto beneath the river Rhine in Germany.
Now, is that the real Germany or the Busch Gardens Rhine River in Germany, Anna?
I think this is the real Germany.
Oh, okay.
So they have some weird stuff over there.
Yeah.
Every night when the moon's full, she turns into a reptile-like creature craving for human blood. And I guess she stalks a boarding school, and then a hunter is engaged to kill the monster. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So,
plus I like that wherever this is, there's a full moon every night, according to this.
Yeah, every night when the moon is
every night there's the full moon. So maybe it's like Groundhog Day.
That's how it is in Germany.
Yeah.
Really? I was over there for 3 weeks.
Oh, is it really? Is it like?
Yeah, I was over there in 3 weeks in high school, and there was a full moon every single night. It was the craziest thing. Yeah.
And here I am, like thinking it was just like a funny thing, and now yeah. That'd be funny.
All right, Resident Evil. Moving on from our Civil Gore science.
Yeah.
Kids, don't take science lessons from Civil Gore.
Yeah, because I'll believe anything that if Tim was lying or not, I would never know. So.
Okay, so next up is Resident Evil Vendetta, which I believe is the cartoon movie.
Yeah, because it's the sequel. They made one. It was I want to say like at least over 10 years ago. I would say the first one came out, and I remember it's actually really good. And actually, I kind of think I enjoyed it better than some of the live action ones. It was just I just remember a scene. I haven't seen it, like I said, since it came out, but I do own it on regular DVD. But it was I think it was Degeneration. I think it was called the original one, and they have. I remember there was a really cool scene in an airport in it, and it was that's typical graphic novel style.
Yeah,
computer
like
animation.
Style.
Yeah, but it was from what I remember, it was really. I just remember really enjoying it. So I may have to check this one out.
I love horror anime stuff. And speaking of that, have you seen any of the Castlevania series on Netflix?
I saw the trailer, but which made it look really cool. So now
I've heard really good things.
Yeah, and they already I think approved a second season for it already.
Yeah, I can't wait to check that one out, because I might watch the first episode of that tonight, because I've heard really good things from people who have actually gone through the season already. So
yeah, my Netflix series queue, I mean, not even just horror lately, it's just been backed up to no end. I got I think there's like 4 series I need to watch to finish. I'm almost finished with I know this is not horror related, just go a little off topic, but Glow, which is fantastic. I'm almost done with that, but then I want the Castlevania one. There's I can't even remember right now off the top of my head, but I know I have 2 others like in the queue waiting to go. So I'm in.
Well, I haven't even watched House of Cards or Orange is the New Black's new seasons, and I've kept up with those shows religiously.
Right,
so that shows how far behind I am.
Yeah, I'm still caught up with Twin Peaks though, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
And the last night's episode was a great one, actually. That was a really good one. So it's like it's it's really starting to come together, the new series, to where there's just a couple of episodes you're like, what the heck is going on? And then there's some that just start tying it all together from the original show and the movie Fire Walk with Me, and you just kind of like, you're starting to get like that really like that buzz you got like when you watch the original series. So hopefully you'll get caught up soon, and then you'll be able to get up to where I am.
I think I'm just on episode 4 of season 2 right now, so I got a ways to go, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, but you had your line of the week. You liked the Cooper line.
Oh yeah, you get the picture, even got the frame.
Yeah,
I love that. Oh, so
yeah, there's not a better. I defy you to find some better character than Agent Cooper there. I swear.
Last one on our list is the Bat People from 1974.
There you go. It's the Tim's birth year renaissance on Blu-ray.
After being bitten by a bat in a cave, Doctor undergoes a transformation into a man bat, which I like this description, which ruins his vacation and causes considerable distress for his wife. Who writes these descriptions?
I don't know, but awesome. that may be I think that may be my favorite description you've ever read on this show. Because I mean, I'm just thinking this on so many levels. Like, which you think she found more considerable distress? Because I know, when a vacation gets ruined on just the basic level, that's horrible. But now this poor woman, not only is her vacation ruined, her husband's turning into a man bat, and she probably lost a deposit.
I know you'd ruin the vacation, Henry. I could like you ruin everything.
Last time it was you got sick. Now you turn into a half bat. Yeah. Boy, that might be one we need to review.
You're hanging upside down to go to sleep.
I told you we should have went to Disney. Yeah,
eating bugs.
Sucking
that's blood.
And the funniest thing is, it doesn't even sound like he became like a good man bat, like fighting crime, like the original, didn't the original Batman, like the old ones, like he used to like gut his victims or something in the comics?
There is a man bat.
Oh, maybe I got it confused. I thought
their Batman fought Man Bat.
Oh, did he? Okay.
And Man Bat was a scientist that basically turned into, he was more of where Batman is a Batman, Man Bat is
he's a man bat.
Is mostly bat with a little bit of man.
Oh, okay.
Instead of a man with a little bit of bat.
Yeah.
And he could fly too. And I was so excited when I played that Arkham series of games and Man Bat was in there. In the most recent one, and I was flipping out because I used to have the comic of an old 80s or 70s or 80s Batman comic that had Man Bat on the cover.
See, that may be what I remember and got confused with, like an older Batman comic where he was like really kind of savage. That's probably what I got confused with. You know how sometimes memory is like twist in your head back when they're old enough and you're getting to my age.
I'm a big Man Bat fan, so I whenever I see anything related to that, I'm like, oh, Man Bat, because not many people know about him.
Yeah, I remember there was a cool action figure of him from the animated series. Like a cool Man Bat action figure that I used to I think I might still have it somewhere.
He's one of the underrated Batman villains. But
yeah, so all you listeners out there, if you want to send Tim a surprise gift, get it of the Man Bat variety.
I'm a huge Batman fan, in addition to my horror stuff. So.
Oh, I'll have to show you. I got some good Batman collectibles sitting around here.
Let's see. Let's go through the theatrical releases for July 14th. We only have 2 here, and they're probably both limited.
I'm just looking at the second one and chuckling.
The first one was Wish Upon, which is about a teenage girl that discovers a box that gives her magic powers and a deadly price for using them. So kind of a monkey's paw type situation.
That story used to creep me out as a kid, by the way.
Yeah, that was a creepy story.
Yeah.
And then the second one that Brian was laughing about is called Granny of the Dead.
Yeah. So that's just, I guess, like the zombies are even getting older now, and then
yeah.
But now, think about it. Now, most grandmothers try, they're always trying to feed you. So does this one come around and try to hand you brains rather than?
Oh yeah, you need to eat your brains.
Yeah, eat your brains. You're too thin.
You're too skinny.
Yeah, I'd love to see that, especially if it's a Jewish grandmother. A Jewish granny of the dead. That would be interesting. I think we got something. That could be Kickstarter number 18.
That's right.
Jewish grandmothers of the dead. Yeah,
it's a sequel.
Yeah, it is. Oh.
But anyway, so we spent enough time goofing around. It's time to get into part 2 of our Jason Voorhees series. So we'll pick up right there. Well, let's just go through an overview of the whole series, and just kind of give our brief impressions on each one. So obviously the first one, Friday the 13th, is actually Mrs. Voorhees. So you never actually see Jason until the very end, which is kind of a dream sequence, actually. So he's literally really not in the movie at all.
Right, yeah.
And then part 2, which, again, I watched fairly recently, and I just forgot how great a sequal that is.
It really is.
To me, that's as good a sequel as Halloween 2 was.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I mentioned that before. On one of our first chops, I mentioned that. I honestly think, in terms of just quality of sequels, that one ranks right up there. I think it's underappreciated as a sequel.
Oh no, I agree. Yeah, I think it came out literally like a year later. Like they fast tracked that thing, and obviously they can churn these things out pretty quickly. I mean, there's not a lot of, especially back that time. You got there's no really special effects other than like the practical blood and gore, which is at the time was pretty simplistic as well as it worked. So. And so it's pretty, it was pretty good how they just had a sequel so quick. And it's funny. I always say this. It's like, when people say, "Oh, it's so ridiculous. How do you like that?" I mean, none of it seems like none of it could happen. And I always say, well, let me. If you want to be really, really critical of the film, I get it. But part 1 is actually completely realistic and could happen the way it did, hands down, obviously. Mm-hmm. I stretch and say technically part 2 could happen is if you follow the mythology that he never actually drowned and kind of made it out and just was lost in the woods and didn't know any better. Yeah. So that's my thing. Yes, granted it got a little bit, obviously it got far-fetched. You killed him 50 times. He came back by lightning twice. I mean, all these crazy ways to get him back. I get it. And the one thing one nitpick I will make on this series is, watch 2 and 3. 2 ends with Jason as with all the hair and scruffy, deformed face, and he's not exactly that hulking of a character, because he's actually, I think he's even he almost looks like a teenager in.
It's funny because he gets bigger and bigger as the movies progress.
Right, and that was my point. Not only does he get, and supposedly Friday the 13th Part 3 takes place like a day after Part 2. And somehow in that time, he's managed to get bigger and shave his head completely. And he's got a total different, his face resembles it enough that you can say, all right, well, he had the scraggle, so maybe that's how he looks without the scraggle. But where is he shaving? I know he gets a different outfit, because he goes into the laundry of that.
He does have a machete.
Yeah, I guess he could. He could. But I tell you, I guess he wields it pretty good, because I know when I used to use an actual razor blade to shave, I was like, I look like I was out of the movie. I had nicks and cuts, and I went through septic pencils all over the place, But yeah. So I mean, it's kind of funny how different it, within a day makes. But you kind of work. You just go with it, because if you're buying into the movie, you're buying into it. Like I said, one of my and recently, actually, I just found out, it was very sad. She passed away. It was one of my film study teacher in high school. We had a class, and she gave us a quote from somebody that basically said, "Buy the premise, buy the flick." And that sticks with me, because it's like, if you're in there going to see that, and you just buy what you're seeing in front of you, it won't ruin the movie. You won't be sitting there. It's like, oh, this is stupid. Just go along with it. you're watching it. You're just buy into it for the hour and a half to 2 hours.
You have to. Otherwise, you have, as a horror fan, you have to do that.
Right. I mean, now we can nitpick and joke and pick fun at it, but at the time you go in there, I'm not doing that. I'm looking at it, and I'm enjoying it. I'm looking at it for what it is. As crazy and outlandish as it is, that's what it is at that moment to me. So,
now part 3 is very unique in horror franchise history in the fact that the horror icon doesn't actually get his signature look until the 3rd movie of the film, which is insane.
And kind of midway through it, he does some kills before he gets it.
Right. So now the big gimmick, of course, for part 3 was that it was in 3D.
Right.
Which at that time, if you remember, Jaws 3D, like every 3rd film had to be in 3D.
Yeah, that was like a thing. It was like 3D. Yeah.
So there was some really just ridiculous gimmicky 3D shots.
Oh my god, they used
that are just
there's
the guy juggling.
Yeah, and there's a couple of signature ones that they tend to use in 3D. This one used every one of them.
Yeah, like this is the go-to when you're looking for cheesy 3D gimmicks to have something poking out the screen. Yeah, they used every one in the book.
I think one of my favorite ones is when some of them I think they worked in pretty good to what was actually going on. Like when he holds the eyeball out at them and he's like, "Here, look," and he shows it to them. You're getting the view of one of the characters, so it kind of is cool how it kind of comes out at the screen at you, which is the first of 2 eyeballs that jump out at the screen. But the one that always cracks me up the most is one of the ones really early on in the film when the guy is like out there and I guess she's like yelling, the wife is yelling at him. He's like, all right, and he's fixing the laundry line and he just holds that pole up behind, like he's adjusting it and he's kind of pointing it right at the camera so it comes out.
And like for an unusually long time.
Right, he's like having so much trouble like lining this thing up, and I'm like, okay, they're really trying to get the 3D in there. And and obviously some of the I remember the marketing for it was great because they were like, now Jason comes off the screen, it's like, they played it like, okay, now you're not just safe because he's on the screen, now he's coming at you, and it's like, and can you blame them for marketing that way? No, absolutely. It was done great.
Was good.
And, I mean, it's funny though. Part 3 to me is one of the harder ones I have to get through. I don't know why. I think a lot of times it drags at some point.
It does, yeah. I watched it not too long ago, and I kind of remember thinking the same thing. I was like, yeah, like I kind of remember some of the later films not being this. Yeah. This slow.
Yeah, I think because you know what, I think it was all about like I think they just wanted to get it out there as fast as possible. Play the 3D element and kind of. Just and try and just quickly grab the buck out of it and get that extra that hype of it. And I mean, it's funny, the characters weren't bad in it. I mean, but it's funny, other than I think you got the the goofball guy Shelley, which was great. Every line he said cracked me up. I love that guy. He's like that lovable loser, like so he's down on himself and he he just get his great moment of they've gone too far that time, and he turns around the car and goes after the biker gang and. But it's like overall, I think the other characters are pretty much just. I mean, they have that Cheech and Chong rip-off guy, the stoner couple. It's just, and it's everyone else in it, other than that, and the main girl, I think are like, it's so flat. Every one of them. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, it was definitely a cash grab.
Yeah, it was bad, and it's funny because Tracy Savage, the one that played, I hope I'm getting these facts right, but I'm pretty sure she played the girl that was, the couple in there she said she was pregnant, which I gotta tell you is kind of a little disturbing if you think about it when she's killed it, he actually killed a mother-to-be in that movie. They dropped the line a couple times that she's pregnant because that's why she doesn't have the pot in the beginning. But she does ask for a beer later on, which is whatever, right? But she apparently became a newscaster later on, I guess, and they found out that she did the nude scene in that, and they let her go.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I think you guys can look that up. What I don't understand is they didn't really. Why would that? Why is if she was an actress and then she became a guy? I mean, it's not like she did something horrible. She acted in a movie, big deal, right? I just thought that was kind of silly, but yeah. So, I mean, there was actually the part I like. For some reason, that Jason though creeped me out more than any other Jason, And I think it's because, like, when he had, like, some of the sequences, like, when I think you saw the most of him without the mask in that.
Yeah.
And, like, that one sequence, like, where she has the dream sequence, used to freak me out when she's sitting in the boat and she looks up and she sees him, like, at the window in the barn, that Higgins Haven barn, and he's, like, looking at the window, and then you see him come running out. Because that was creepy, because, like, it's like, this big, hulking, deformed guy, and you see him running at her, and she's in the boat, and she's trying to paddle. And I'm like, wow, for some reason, that Jason always creeped me out. And I love...
that was Richard Brooker.
Richard Brooker, yeah. And I love the scene where where he's, like, comes up to her, and he lifts the mask to show that it was the guy that... Remember where she has the flashback where he attacked her, I guess, previously, a year earlier?
Yeah.
Which, again, goes to my thing that makes no sense, because if it's a year before that, why does he look like he does now? Clean-shaven again. But, once again, we'll let it slide on that, because... So, yeah, it was great, though. That one, I love that when he, like, taunts her. That's the first Jason that kind of had some personality.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Well, now, this next one is one I loved as a kid or teenager whenever I first watched it, which was Friday the 13th 4, which is technically the final chapter.
Right, and that's the one I think that after the first one, people regard as like the premier one, like the one of the best ones that people like to cling to.
Because it had Corey Feldman,
right.
A very young Corey Feldman, as playing Tommy Jarvis. I just remember, obviously, I wasn't probably that much older than Corey Feldman at the time. He may have been older than me. I can't remember, but I just thought it was so cool that there was a kid in a horror movie like this.
Right.
And he was actually fighting back.
Right, and that's the first kid that Jason went after. So, it's like, so you think about it, it's like, okay, most of them are going after teenagers. Well, this time they're going after, like, literally a little kid.
Yeah, I just looked him up. He's 3 years older than me.
Oh, so he was...
So you had that same age range, where I was like, oh, this is super cool.
Yeah. Sorry, by the way, if you out there, if you hear that, obviously it was recording the night before 4th of July, so there are some fireworks going on in my neighborhood behind.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if you caught that. So if you do hear some explosions, we apologize. But, that's what are you going to do? You know what? We did not want to skip recording a show just because of a holiday. So, but besides that.
Now... The next one is Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, or Part 5, which this one...
Wait, can we just go back to one thing with Part 4? You forgot one of the major characters in that, which was Crispin Glover. I mean...
Oh, yeah. Oh,
where's the corkscrew, Ted? You can't forget that.
How could I forget? Yeah, that's another reason it makes that movie so great. I mean, you got two, like, high-caliber actors.
Right. So, sorry. I didn't mean to stop you there. We got it. We cannot go through it.
Well-deserved. Yeah, that was well-deserved.
Okay.
So Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, which that one kind of went off the rails because in this one, spoiler alert, Jason's not really Jason.
Right.
He's a copycat killer. And I remember even back then when I watched this on video, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, I was so mad.
Well, I got to tell you a funny story about that. And it's funny because of the movie that this happened to be in. So... Remember, I was watching Part 5, and at this point, I remember, like I said, I had watched 6 first, and then I went down to 5 and then 4. So at that point, I had already watched 6 in my mom's house. My stepdad had come in, he saw me watching it, and he's like, what are you watching? And, Friday the 13th. So I was like, oh, okay. So then he saw me when I was watching Part 5, and he came in and he saw that scene where the guy's hacking the wood up and he's just chopping the wood. He goes, so is that the murderer? They finally catch him and now he's at like some like prison camp or something? And I said no, that's just some random guy. I said Jason's supposedly dead, so I don't know where he's coming in yet. He hasn't been in the movie yet. So he's like, oh, okay. And I just always thought that was funny.
Having watched it recently though, it was still very entertaining. There's some great kills in that movie.
Oh my god, yeah. There's actually. And actually, that was the one they said they had the most trouble. They had to make the most cuts to get it into an R rating. Because there was that famous sequence with Vi where she gets stabbed in the stomach in the movie. But the original cut, she was supposed to have gotten stabbed right up to hoo-hoo. The hoo-ha, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to stay... I know we have the explicit rating, but I'm trying to stay clean.
Yeah, yeah, I still fondly remember the couple that killed with the hedge clippers. The girl gets her eyes gouged out.
Oh, right.
And then like the guy gets like strapped to the tree or whatever, or maybe I got that reversed. I can't remember.
Yeah, no, you have it. Yeah, he gets strapped to the tree. Yeah,
guy gets strapped, but
I think he gets killed first. But yeah. I was reading a whole thing. There was this great site I saw where it literally listed every single cut out of all the movies, and they said actually that sex scene was originally in the movie as like they said it was literally almost softcore porn. It was so like
I would
graphic.
have loved to seen that.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, and also I found another thing of part 2. Sandra, the girl that got in the double impalement. Apparently, that scene was a lot longer, where she literally pushed off the body, and she had a total full frontal scene. And but while they were editing the film, they found out that she was underage. She was only 17, so they had to destroy the footage. So that was a much longer scene, they said, where she literally kind of pushed the body off and got up, and it was more gory, and obviously she's sitting there, Starker's there, and.
So now we get to one of my personal favorites of the entire series.
That's funny. That's mine too. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but part 6 I absolutely loved. It's probably the one besides the original that I've watched the most of the whole series. And that is, of course, part 6, Jason Lives. And that's where Tommy is all grown up, obviously, which he was in 5 too. But he heads back to Jason's grave and accidentally resurrects Jason with a crowbar or a piece of the fence,
right, the fence.
That he sticks at him, and it gets hit by lightning and resurrects Jason. But I don't know why I love this movie out of all of these as much as I do, but I just thought I just loved it.
You know what?
I don't know.
I kind of loved it a lot too, and that was always one of my favorites. And it's one that I probably it may have been next to the first one, the one I watched the most. And I think there's something about it. I think it took the vibe of the year it came out, and it was it just had a lot of liveliness to it, and it even had some comedy in it, and it had like Jason too was relentless. He was you know what, I'm pissed. You not left me out of the last movie. Well, now I'm really coming back, because he was killing everybody, counselors, people in the town, cops. I mean, this was the first one where he just went on an onslaught. Anyone got in his way. Anyway.
Well, plus you also had the grown-up Tommy coming back. In 5, he was kind of just not a factor at all. But in this one, he's like an actual adversary to Jason.
Right.
Which is just super cool.
Right, and it was like the Tommy trilogy, so to speak. It was the... it was he was okay, I'm coming back, and I loved it how it just the way it started, and the pacing was quick and cut, and it had, and it just it just had even the some parts I see people complain they think it's too comical, but I love the sequence when he's going off slaughtering the people playing the paintball game. That's great. And he's got the belt on, and he puts it in his belt. He's walking around like he's part of the game kind of thing with that utility belt he's got.
Oh, and I loved isn't there a sequence where he goes into the cabin full of sleeping kids?
Yes.
But he doesn't bother them.
Right, because he has nothing against. That's the thing, and that stays true to the Jason mythology. There's no he comes didn't he come face to face with the little girl too? Yeah, and I
thought that was just so cool.
Yeah, and I don't know, I just loved it. I think because it was so modern. I think it was and also I think it was the first one they really I think there was a really it felt like there was a high budget to it, and it came out and it had rock and roll music. It had, the Alice Cooper, Teenage Frankenstein in there, and
Well, that 1986 was such an awesome awesome year for movies anyway.
Right.
It seems like everything was just gold that year.
Yeah, and so it was just so cool the way it from the start to the finish of that movie, and it was just it had it just had and the cast in it, for some reason, each person was kind of likable to some level. I mean, you hated maybe the cop, the father, but you had that stupid deputy guy that was all doofy in it, and kablammy, and that and just that you love the fact that for the first time truly someone was literally hunting Jason throughout the whole thing, while he was hunting everyone else, there was someone hunting him.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first, the first time they really did that, and that was what was cool. And you got the, you knew that Tommy was at this point he's all right, I gotta finish this off, and there was just a cool element to it, and it had some cool kills in it, the triple decapitation. I mean, and stuff like that. And there was a novel to that which I'd love to get my hands on, because apparently it had a whole nother plot line where. That the caretaker that gets killed supposedly was paid by Elias Voorhees to watch the grave of Jason. And so there was a whole character with a live, and that was supposedly the ending where he walks up behind them and said, like, I said something like, you know, and he's like, oh, he's gone or something, and he, you know, you see just him walk away, like, upset because, you know, the guy didn't do his job or something. I forgot the logistics of it, but there was a whole, they were going to try and go, and I'm kind of glad they didn't go this way. Because, it, you know, that's the beauty about this film is like, film series is that it doesn't really go too much into the backstories as much, and you know, and if it does, it's quick and it's in a flashback or it's in a quick little monologue. So, you know, to start doing that would have been too much like Halloween, you know, with the whole thing with the guy in black that keeps showing up and you don't know who he is, and you don't need that.
They didn't know who he was either.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it just kind of, and at some level, while they're trying to make it more of a story, you actually limit your creativity because then you got to now follow this. Got to find a way to incorporate this every time. And so I'm glad they just took that out and that the caretaker guy died in a funny way, and that was the end of it, you know? It's like...
Well, now, part 7 I remember being really disappointed in when I first saw it, but over the years I think it's become a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Because... I think the only reason I didn't like it at the time was I thought which is kind of funny for a movie about a essentially immortal slasher, but I thought the telekinesis thing was unbelievable.
Yeah, right.
So that's the reason I just kind of dismissed this movie. Like I was like, okay, I get it. You're trying to do something different, but that's just completely ridiculous. Like there's no way. And so I kind of like just completely dismissed it out of hand. But over the years, I think people have kind of warmed to it.
Right.
And I hear a lot of people say that's one of their favorites.
Well, and it had one of the most classic kills in it with the sleeping bag. Which, you know, which like is just, you know, was so legendary, especially because it was a character the character wasn't even in the movie for any point other than that for that kill. Essentially, they were just in that part. But I wonder if they, you know, the reason why they went that way is because I guess maybe they had to play off, you know, because the part 6 was so popular because of that. You know, Jason had a true nemesis in it, and you know, and they figured like, but they didn't want to rehash with Tommy again. Because I think Tommy's storyline ended the way it did, and that was perfect the way it ended. You know, you didn't need any more of him. Kind of harkens back to the first one a little, where the final girl is kind of like a tough person and resilient. Because like the first thing where, you know, Alice and Pamela had a knockdown, drag out brawl there right by the lake. You know, and so kind of captured that a little bit maybe. You know, where you had a female character that was like going toe to toe with Jason. And was really giving him a run for his money, and it was great. And that was actually one of my favorite Jasons too. Like I love when his mask would come off and he'd do that jaw thing. Where he'd like,
oh, that was the now 7 was the first appearance of Kane
right
Hodder's
too. Which there you go. Maybe there's that underlying tone of that.
Yeah,
too.
So
and it's funny. I used to think Kane Hodder was always in 6, but that was C.J. Graham. It wasn't in 6, and Kane Hodder obviously when he took over that character. Something clicked differently. There was just something about him that made Jason just like it took him to a new level. And you know, he just, you know, I mean, Kane Hodder obviously he's played some other great. I mean, you know, Victor Crowley, and you know, and so like, and he it's just so. You know, he's great at doing the villain. You know, he's a stuntman, so he's like just this big hulking guy anyway. But so it was great. But like he, just something about the way he walked around as Jason was like it gave it such a different vibe. And I think you could sense it whether you knew it or not.
Yeah, I mean, and he pretty much set the tone of Jason as this like. This is where Jason reached the pinnacle of being like this huge hulking brute. Like it's funny just watching like I said before, it's funny watching how he gets bigger and bigger over the years. But Kane Hodder, man, he kind of put the cap on this. Jason's from now on is just going to be this big, just massive guy.
Right. And it's so funny because, you know, he's like, you know, he's one just brutal killer he plays in the film, and he's like the most awesome guy in person. You get to meet him, and he's just like...
he was so cool. He was easily like one of the coolest guys at the convention we saw because he was having fun. He was having a blast, and it was the last day of the convention. He was still having a ball. Yeah,
and like I said, I think I mentioned it that day too when we were talking about the show. But if you haven't seen it, you got to see his like little arc on that show Holliston.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it is hilarious where he just has these flashback because he keeps every time they mention that he wasn't in Freddy vs. Jason, he has this attack. It's great. So he's got as much as he plays such a one-dimensional character so well, he also has such depth because he can play some comedy, and it's like So so I always thought that was one of my favorite looking Jasons because that was also the one where you could see his backbone, right? When he came out of the thing.
It was so cool because he'd been underwater.
Right, so he was like rotting, and when he first took that mask off, and every time he'd walk up and that jaw would move, I'm just like, oh my god, this is awesome, it's like, and for the first time you had a real because think about it, because Jason obviously at that point has a supernatural element, so it wouldn't be believable for someone to take him on that didn't have some other kind of power, whether you want to, see how far-fetched as it is. And, a lot of times if you think about it, she didn't, this may sound weird, but she didn't really break any rules of telekinesis as is portrayed in films. Like, she usually used the environment against him. Like, it's not like she just shot lasers out of her eyes or something out of the blue. No, she, would move, things and hit him in the head, and she'd make a rope come and tie him up, So she used well, I guess she made a TV explode, but they said that's usually the rule. They can do things like that. It's like that's what I liked. At some level, they stick to the rules of telekinesis as portrayed in films, I guess. So, chalk up some points for that.
Now, part 8 is pretty much as much as people like 6, people hate 8.
Right, and even I remember when I saw that coming out, I said, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" I said,
"Well, it was a bait and switch too because he never really." "Quote unquote" takes Manhattan because he's on a cruise ship for the vast majority of the movie, which is
and even when he's halfway in Manhattan, 99% of that is filmed in Vancouver, and it's obvious it's not Manhattan. I mean,
as you would know,
other than the one scene, obviously. In Times
I just
Square.
remember, and now this is one I did see in the theater. I just remember walking out of there just completely bummed because not only was it the bait and switch of him, because we all had visions that Jason's walking through Times Square just slashing people.
Right.
It's going to be awesome. And none of that occurs. And then you have the horrible, horrible, easily the worst ending of any Friday the 13th movie.
That was
where he somehow gets hit with toxic waste and turns back into a kid, which is, words cannot describe how much I hate that ending.
Yeah, that was, I mean, and for at that time, that was supposedly the last one. And I was like, if they got to end the series on this. This is just... It's ridiculous. And you know what? It is. I mean, and it had some cool kills. Like, it had easily one of my favorite kills in the movie, which was funny. So there is a merit of it. And there was the classic line where I gotta say is I'm glad they did this, as cheesy as it was. But, the whole scene where he goes, oh my God, there's a mass murderer out killing us. And she's, welcome to New York. It's like, I'm like, you had to include that. But I was hoping they would have done it up level, where literally he's be walking in and just slices someone in half and just everyone turns and looks and then just turns back to going to do whatever they're doing. Because, obviously that's a very stereotyped New York. People would, if something happened, people jump in to help you at some level. But I don't want to scare you for your first trip.
Yeah, you're not selling me on
no,
it, right?
Don't worry. I told you, all you got to do is walk fast like you're going somewhere and learn to eat while you're walking. You're fine. You'll fit in. But so it's and the funniest story I always read about that, they said that and what shows, I think this is a testament to Kane Hodder playing Jason and just the franchise in itself. He always says that when they did film that one scene that was actually in Manhattan, where he walks out in Times Square, he said he got this round of applause, people went crazy when he came out. And I'm like, you see that, it's you're talking about a whole bunch of people cheering for a guy that literally just destroys people. It's and slices them up.
By this point, it's kind of funny because this is one of the franchises too where people started pulling for the villain.
Right.
I don't know that anybody ever pulled for Michael Myers, really.
No, I don't think they did. I think
they were kind of scared of him, but both Freddy, I think Freddy kind of goes into that category too.
Oh my God,
where he was so popular that people kind of saw him as the hero more than the villain.
And I think he picked that up pretty quick, much quicker than Jason did.
But I'm telling you, a Jason movie these days, if they made another one, there would be people screaming and cheering.
Oh
for
my
Jason.
God! Well, they did in the remake. I remember people going nuts.
Yeah.
And even in Jason Goes to Hell to some degree, I remember seeing that in the theater. And every time Jason would, and remember, if you remember, there was that whole approach where he wasn't even always quote unquote Jason in it, but when he came back and emerged back as Jason, I remember seeing that opening night. The theater went ballistic.
Yeah, and that, to this day, I mean, it's a good segue because to this day, Jason Goes to Hell, which even though it's not a great movie,
Right.
was the single most fun I've ever had at a horror movie.
That was it. If you to see, and I gotta tell you a little backstory that I had seen. A friend of mine, my friend Paul, actually knew someone that was worked on some effects, and I think he worked on that film. So he got us a cut of that, like a working print cut that we got to watch before it actually came out in theaters. So,
wow.
Yeah, so I saw that, and then when I went back. I remember I went to New York, and I was visiting, and I went and saw it with my friends. We saw it on opening night. We saw it with my friend Mark and John. We saw it on opening night. Still remember the theater. I still remember the actual physical theater. It's this theater I still go to nowadays. It's been redone 10 times, but I still remember walking into that. It was one of the bigger rooms, and the place went ballistic. And I had seen it already, so it was it was really cool to see the explosion of when he burst out like that back as Jason again, and you saw him really back on the screen like that. Even though you did see him in the beginning, but when he came back, I remember the place just went nuts. And that movie, I remember there was a lot of cheering through the different sequences, like when I remember that when the Robert character is Jason, when he's walking in in a diner, and it's like kind of that slow, and they just whip out the shotgun, and she's like, I mean, even then people were cheering. Like, people, for some reason, something about that movie, everyone got into that.
It's hard for me to come up with another reaction to a horror. Now, I've seen horror films where the reaction was like fright,
right?
Like people screaming or whatever. So, but like as far as like just full on having a ball cheering every time there was a kill, it hasn't been equaled for me since.
Right, and like you said, and like I remember, like people were like every joke that was in that movie. There was a couple of like joke parts, like with Kane Hodder. Remember? Oh, is that Jason? Yeah, here's just an old pussy. I mean, the whole crowd cracked up. There was laughter because, and you think about it, there were probably people like would be like that doesn't realize, but that's how iconic he was at that point after only doing 2 Jason movies. But everyone knew that's Kane Hodder. That's Jason. How funny is that? It's like, and he sold it. And, and I think that, and even the opening sequence was so unique for a Friday the 13th film. When they I remember when Jason was chasing him, and then the floodlights hit, and the whole like SWAT team.
Trap him.
Yeah, it's like, whoa! You're like, look at this.
It was so cool.
Yeah,
and then they wisely just forgot the end of Part 8. They just kind of completely ignored it,
which I loved. I'm like. And I remember reading that when that was coming out, and I found that was coming out, and that guy, Adam Marcus, who was the director of that, was basically saying how much he loved it, and they were like basically just they're basically treating it as if this was like almost like a reality show, like everyone knew Jason at this point, like the world knew Jason, in the other movies you don't know outside the world other than
it was a unique take on it. It was almost like pretending he was kind of real. Unfortunately, now they did have to explain too much with that little evil creature thing that was inside of him or whatever.
That's where it got a little.
I hated that.
That's where it got. Like, I wish they could have done everything like that. That whole same feeling of the film, of that reality thing, and I didn't even mind the bounty hunter part. I like that. I didn't like that, and then they gave Jason a sister. And all those other things that he didn't need. It almost got like, well, if you think about it though, they did add. That was, remember, they had the They did have they made a reference to Halloween in that movie. He made there was the reference to Creepshow where they had the thing. They had the Book of
it had a ton of
They had the Book of the
in
Dead. So he's obviously a horror fan, and he wanted to kind of makes a lot of tongue-in-cheek moments in that. And but yeah, so I think I love the vibe of it. It had the potential to be so amazing, but like I said, you're right. It was still such a fun movie, even with all its shortcomings. So you kind of can forgive it, as weird as it was, and at some level it kind of gave a unique, like, excitement that you don't have in the Friday the 13th. Because usually within about 5 minutes, Jason is back and he's killing everybody. This, they made you wait,
Yep.
And then he just exploded back onto the screen in that great scene where he just threw out of the floor, and at that point you like almost literally forgot everything up until that point. You're like, wow, he's
Yeah.
back. That's awesome. Here he is, and it's like, it was a cool Jason model, with the back of the hair and how the mask was kind of molded into his face by that point, and just really cool.
Yeah, I still have a soft spot in my heart for that one.
I do too. I mean, as much as I hated that one element, I still consider it one of the ones I like the most. If that makes sense,
Now, Jason X, obviously this is where they were running out of ideas.
Right. As usual, they go to space.
As usual, they go to space.
Yeah. Although Freddy never went to space, so that's good one for him.
Don't give him ideas.
Oh,
That's our 17th Kickstarter.
Yeah, we're the only reason we're claiming it is so it doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna bury it. But so I remember seeing Jason X. I also saw this one in the theater, and oh man, it was another one that I walked out of the theater. I just hated it because I hated the whole premise. I thought it was so dumb.
Yeah.
But man, this one's grown on me over the years because it has some awesome kills in it.
It does, and that's I mean, that's kind of the cool. And the funny thing is, with all it's like one of those it's weird to me. It's like I don't like the premise of it, but I enjoy the movie every time I see it, even though I don't remember being too fond of it, like you said, the first time I saw it, but I guess maybe it does grow on me for some reason. I don't know.
I think people have warmed to it over the years. I really think they have, because of if you can get over the silly, stupid premise, and just look at it as a, just look at the kills and look at the certain elements that are good about it. Like there is some charm there. So I mean, and as far as like things in space, villains in space go, it's probably one of the better ones.
Well, yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Yeah, they don't have many to compare to that are good, but yeah.
I mean, I know I saw the Hellraiser in space one, which was awful, and the Leprechaun.
God, I don't even
in
think I knew
space.
there was a Hellraiser in space.
Yeah, there was a Hellraiser in space.
Yeah, Leprechaun in space I actually own because I bought that really good deal they had on Leprechaun, the whole set. So
you mean there was a really good deal on the Leprechaun series?
Yeah.
I am shocked.
Right? I know. Go figure. I think they chuckled as if I was buying that car that's been on the lot for 25 years. Yeah.
Hey, John, somebody finally bought that Leprechaun set that's been collecting dust in the back.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I thought the box was double its size when I grabbed it, but it was really just half of it was dust clearing when I closed. But yeah. But yeah, no, and it's funny. It does have its moments that one, and I actually kind of like the beginning. I thought the beginning was kind of a cool premise to it. But I think where I think I could have done, and everyone says, like, some people I know love this, some people don't like it. I'm on the camp. I think they could have done without it. Like, I don't think they needed to have Jason get the tech mask upgrade thing. I don't know.
No, I don't like the look of him at all.
Yeah, I just think think if he would have came fine, they thought he was dead, and he comes floating at the ship and that whole thing. That's fine. You want to even give him a metallic arm, I can buy that. But don't touch his mask. Come on. That was
kind of
silly.
cheesy.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I felt like it was almost made to sell action figures or something.
Yeah, like I think they just wanted something at the time. Yeah, there's something out of it. And and thank God, I don't even think they have the rights to that one for the video game, thank God, because I don't think I'd ever play that character.
No. Now the next one I was so looking forward to, and that was the long rumored. I mean, this movie had been rumored for ever.
And they teased it in Jason Goes to Hell, which got another explosion of the crowd. Which was this was a full 10 years later that this movie actually comes out, which was Freddy versus Jason. Right. And actually, I got to say, this one in the theater, the vibe equaled Jason Goes to Hell, actually. For me.
Yeah, I saw this one in the theater, and there was definitely more Jason fans in there than there were Freddy fans.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I noticed that, and I was
everybody
surprised.
Loved Jason.
I was surprised a little because so many people loved Freddy because he had, he had a charisma and he had jokes, and Jason really didn't have much of a personality. So it was like, you could see. I thought there was gonna be more, but I still remember that when Jason walked out at the end holding Freddy's head.
Oh my gosh, the theater went
right.
Nuts.
It did.
Yeah.
Yours too. Oh my God, it was so great.
Nuts.
It was great.
And I did too, because I was like, if they screw this up, and Jason is destroyed, like I'm gonna be so pissed because I like Freddy as far as a horror icon, but he's always been probably my least favorite of of the big three.
Mine too, and
big four.
Mine too, and nothing against Robert Englund at all, because there was no one that could have played that character as good as you saw, even the remake. And Jack Earl Haley is a phenomenal actor; he's one of my favorite actors.
Yes,
but I'm sorry, but Robert Englund, that's like, there's just certain people that are born to play a certain role, and you can't, I mean, go a little off topic. That's why it's like, I don't care how good this guy is. This Han Solo movie is going to be weird because it's not Harrison Ford. And it's just like someone else playing Indiana Jones. There's just, you can't replace people and still get the same thing. And so Robert Englund embodied the character, and what the audience fell in love with is Robert Englund's portrayal of Freddy, not the character of Freddy. And that's what people sometimes forget when they try and reboot these things. So, but Jason can be rebooted a lot easier, obviously.
He's behind a mask,
right? It's obviously can be rebooted easier. And Kane Hodder's actions, as great as they were, are easier to mimic than, Robert Englund's thing.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, me too. I was rooting for Jason the whole time. I was like, you better not, I will not accept him.
And it's
losing.
not, it's not terrible. It's not as good as it could have been.
No, it could have been,
probably,
but I remember.
I still kind of like it.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember, but when in that 10 years between the tease and what actually came out, so many fake scripts and rumored scripts were popping all over the internet. And I remember I read one that incorporated Alice from from Dream Child. The Alice character from 4 and 5, and Tommy Jarvis and it had them battling, the two of them, and it was like, and I'm like, this will never get made if this is what it was. I mean, I get where they were trying to go with and they even brought back Heather Langenkamp's character.
Oh gosh,
Nancy.
Yeah.
So I mean, they brought back basically it almost like I was like, there's no way this is gonna happen.
That's fan fiction.
Yeah,
right
I'm
there.
like, this smells like fan fiction all over it.
Now, I remember, I seem to recall, even up to the point that I went and saw the movie, there was rumors that there were 2 different endings, and you would get a random one, whether either Freddy won or Jason.
Right. Well, they did. From what I understand, they did shoot 3 different endings. The one that you got, one that was, and then one was a clear-cut winner for both. Because obviously, with the Freddy wink, okay, basically they made it essentially a draw. But apparently they did film 2 different endings along with the one that you saw. One with clear-cut winners. But I think they made the right call. I don't think someone, why upset one side of the fan base? And at that point, remember, there was rumors of them doing a sequel. Freddy vs. Jason 2 was a green lit at one point, and they just never got around to it for various reasons. And then I remember there was that whole Freddy vs. Jason vs. Michael Myers rumor and throwing. And
I've heard so many rumors that Pinhead.
Yeah, I mean, Freddy vs. Jason kind of made sense to some degree. And I got to tell you, they did come up with a great way to incorporate the 2 at some level.
Yeah, that was a cool premise.
It was.
I like the premise.
I like the premise. I actually, it's one of those films where whether you think it's a good film or not, it was enjoyable. And I remember the crowd was into it, and I think, and Monica Keena is just awesome, I always thought. And it was a really cool, it was just one of those fun movies you kind of had to see in the theater. Because I think if you just watch it, for the first time, not, on home video or whatever, DVD, I guess, I think you miss something. You definitely will be like, all right. But when you see it in the theater, there was that adrenaline rush of everyone screaming with you and getting excited. I still remember that everyone was loved the fact when they found the dead body and they all go running out and screaming out of the house in the beginning. The crowd was cheering, and when that one guy goes up, he goes, "Oh, that hockey goalie is pissed," or whatever he said.
Yeah,
it had that vibe, a crowd that everyone was that was going so into it, and that's the thing, you don't want to I think that made it more enjoyable for me over the years, because I always have that, whenever I watch it, I kind of have that feeling and remembering that stuff.
Now the final one in the series, if you want to call it that, was the remake from 2009.
Right.
And I covered this in a First Chop recently, where I remember really enjoying it in the theater, and then when I watched it back on video, I didn't like it at all. And I think it goes back to what we were saying, where in the theater, everybody was screaming at the kills and laughing and applauding Jason. And so you had that vibe. But when I watched it back on video without all that, I realized that I really didn't care for it that much at all.
Right, and I just watched it recently. I watched it the other night because, like I said, I'd watched the first 2, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I started to watch 3, and I'm like, wait a minute, I really want to watch 3, not on my iPad because I want to be able to watch it in 3D. So I decided, I haven't seen the remake in a while. Let me watch that. And while there were elements I loved about it, there was really cool visuals of Friday the 13th where it was like crystal clear, no pun intended, where it was, modernized and stuff like that. But again, they do what people feel like they need to do, and like kind of like change the mythology a little bit where, okay, granted, yes, it had they showed the little exposition at the beginning of what Jason's mother gets killed by a camp counselor, and he witnesses it, and now he's like living on the thing. But I had that whole thing where he's holding someone captive, and I don't like the fact that now he runs again.
And he grows pot on the side.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
yeah, and just it's kind of fun. I kind of like the one part I thought was kind of okay, haha, cool. How he got his hockey mask again. I did not like though why he was walking around with bandages on his head essentially in the beginning. And there were some cool kills in it, and it had the same formula to some degree, but just there was too much of the little the whole thing with the the locket, and
I think the time's ripe for. I think it really is time for a reboot, a good reboot,
right?
But it really sucks that this one this year got scrapped. But hopefully, like you said, hopefully the popularity of the game or whatever will kind of make people nostalgic for it and get it greenlit again.
And let me give if anyone who is working on this potential film is listening, I know the chances are slim, or anyone knows these people, let me give a word of advice. At this point, everyone knows Jason. You do not need to do any setup. You can literally just start it as if it's part 14 or whatever they're up to.
We don't need an explanation of why he's Jason.
Right.
None of that.
Just imply, give the viewers some credit. Okay, just start the film with them reopening a camp again, and just
market it to us old guys,
right? Because that's going to be you're going to get the people. Here's the 2 audiences you're going to get. You're going to get the teen audience that will go through any horror movie that's going to have boobs and violence in it. You're always going to get that crowd. That's the thing. You're going to get the guys like us who love the franchise and is so hungry for another one. So the latter of those two, the kids that are going to see it because it's boobs and violence, they don't care. The story, you don't need to set it up for them. They don't care. We already know it. So there's the thing. Just cut that part out. Start it as if we all knew the whole story, which we do, and go from there. And just come up. You want to come up with cool, inventive kills? Hey, go for that. You want to modernize a little bit? Fine. Just leave the basic premise alone.
All right, so since we've gone through an overview of the series, we had some fun lightning round questions where we're just going to give our quick initial thoughts on a few little topics. So here we go. Favorite films in the series. Brian, go.
Okay, I think, as we mentioned, obviously the first one. I love the second one. And part 6. I think those are my 3 favorites right there.
Yeah, and unfortunately I can't disagree with that because that's definitely mine too. 1, 2, and 6 to me are by far. I'll give honorable mention to 4.
Yes. For
Corey Feldman's role, and like I said, I'll give Jason Goes to Hell a little bit of credit for the theater experience. But 1, 2, and 6 by far are my top.
And it's kind of funny because literally none of our favorites actually have Kane Hodder in it. But as the movies go, it's not his fault. His Jason by far is the best. You want to pick Jason's? Yeah. Hands down. Yeah. It's not even close.
Yeah. Okay, worst films of the series.
Now this is funny because obviously I think hands down I'm gonna say it's like a tied for me. I think I'm gonna say 3 and Jason X. I think those.
Ooh, you're not gonna put 8 in there?
8's in there, but it's got one of my favorite kills in it, so it kind of kind of stays there. And you know what? I almost don't even. I kind of like don't even count it in there. It's like so weird to me. Like, I mean, yeah, it's not one of my favorites, but you know what? I've seen it so many times, and it's got. Okay, here's the thing. I think it's got a little nostalgia for me because it was the first one I actually got to see in the theater.
Okay.
So I think maybe that's why I kind of give it a little bit of a pass. And one funny thing about that, which I meant to mention earlier when we were talking about it real quick. I know I'm kind of killing the whole lightning round motif, but I meant to mention this earlier. That summer it came out had the potential to be one of the best summers in horror movie because if you remember, that and Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, came out right around the same time as each other. So you had like the most epic month possible for a horror movie. You had a Freddy movie and a Jason movie in the same summer, and even I think only one of them hit the mark, which was I like Dream Child, even though it was a little far fetched. It wasn't as good as some of the others, but still, it was definitely the better of the two out of that versus Part 8. But anyway, so you know what? I tend to forget 8 sometimes as being as bad of a film because I think it has a little spot in my heart for it being the first one I saw in the theater. So.
Yeah, I can't in good conscience. I understand the problems with 3, but because that's where he got his mask, I can't in good conscience pick 3. So I'd have to go with 8 and X are my 2 least favorite.
That is true. I do forget that he did the thing. I think, you know what it is? I've seen it. I don't know. I have trouble watching it now. That's the thing. I have trouble getting through 3. So it's actually, it used to not be on the top of my list. It's just, now it's kind of there. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm just more critical now. After seeing more of them, you know, maybe it's just over the years that one kind of like, But we don't have to agree on everything. So
no, that's fine.
as long as we discuss it civilly.
Exactly. Okay, favorite characters, least favorite characters. Favorite character to me is Tommy Jarvis because I loved him when Corey Feldman played him as a kid, and I loved him in Part 6. Like, in terms of characters that I rooted for that I really, really loved, it would be him. With some honorable mentions of some of the final girls in a few of the films that I just really liked, but I'm gonna go with Tommy Jarvis as my favorite character.
Yeah, I'd probably have to pick Tommy too, just because he was, just because you got to grow with him, you know. Even though Part 5 he was kind of a non-entity at some level, but so I think he's number one, and I'm gonna throw a wild card out there, and it's funny. I don't know why she's always been one of my favorites. Is Marcy from Part 1? She's the one with the axe in the face. I feel like because I got through a tough time with her. I don't know. Plus, I always kind of had like she was like a little crush I had back then. You know, she was one of my earlier on-screen boobs that I saw. I don't know.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I will give. I had kind of mentioned this before the podcast, but I have to give credit to the Friday the 13th series as a whole. Great boobs.
Oh yeah, it's got
like pound for pound. I think this franchise had some of the best boobs in the industry.
Oh yeah, by far. I think it really got some, even ones that they didn't show. They're just like, you know, even through like a shirt sometimes. Like, you know, like the Part 5, like the final girl in that, the blonde girl, whatever her name, Pam, I guess. But I think Marcy was always one of my favorites, and because she's funny too. You know, she's like she's goofing around. She kind of jokes around. She's like kind of cool, you know. And I don't know. I just always thought her was one of my favorites. And yeah, like, you know, you do kind of have a fondness to the final girls a little bit. So yeah, but I think Tommy and Marcy, I think I'm gonna pick as my 2 favorites in the series.
Least favorite, I have a hard time because typically my least favorite are the ones that die and that I don't remember.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, the least favorites are tough.
I know I could not stand Old Boy in the remake, the blonde.
Oh God, yeah.
Guy.
But you know what though? The reason why I'm not gonna say he's one of my most hated because he played the part perfect to what you wanted. You wanted to hate him.
Yeah,
he was supposed
they
to be
wanted.
an a-hole.
Yeah, they wanted him to be just a complete douchebag, and he did the job, man. Because I could not stand him.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, you know what? The least favorite character is tough because there's so many of them, and the ones if you think initially why you hate them the most, it's because you're supposed to. So I almost feel that's a cheat, you know?
Yeah.
I think I want to pick someone that you weren't supposed to hate, but you ended up hating, and I'm trying to think of one, and it's kind of tough because, you know, if you think about it, all the counselors in the first ones were pretty much likable. Even the doofy one, you know, the one that was like, you know, playing the jokes and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one, actually. Why did I give us this one? This is a stumper.
Yeah, you made these up. You shouldn't have given.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, best kill. This is a good one. So, obviously, I got to go with the wheelchair down the stairs.
Yes.
That's one of the top kills of the whole series. There was the sleeping bag kill, obviously.
Right.
Some of these are just so iconic.
Yeah.
I love the spear through the chest. For some reason, I just love that darn spear.
Yeah, he uses that spear really good.
Gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. The axe to the face was brilliant.
Yeah, even though it's my Marcy got killed. one of my favorite characters.
Marcy, but that is a great
it is,
kill.
and if you think about it, it's such a harsh one because she's a likable character in that movie, and other than really except breaking the rule of having sex, she it's like she gets it pretty bad. Compared to the other people, how they get it, and that she gets it you see. That's one of the few deaths you see completely.
Yeah. So now a lot of the ones I've mentioned are like some of the most famous ones. I'm gonna throw an oddball one in here, one of my favorites, and that was the Jason X frozen head smash.
Oh yeah, that was pretty cool.
I really like that one. I don't know why, because I think it's because I've always been fascinated by the liquid nitrogen stuff.
That always scared me, actually, liquid nitrogen.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It scared me. You do the science experiments, put a carrot in there and just break it. So that was my worst nightmare come true, is having your whole head dipped in that and then smashed.
I think, yeah, I have one. I have a couple of obvious ones. Obviously, the like we mentioned, the wheelchair one was just so iconic and amazing. The sleeping bag one, of course. I love, like I said, part 8, the boxer, when he just gets his head punched off after he's just fighting Jason for 15 minutes, what it seems like, and he's just beating him up, and then he's just all right, take your best shot, and he just swings and has his head go flying off. I mean, I remember the theater I was in had maybe 5 people in it, but all 5 of them cheered at that part. But that's on there. And here's one of my oddball ones I'm going to throw out that I loved, only for a funny scene. It was such a probably forgotten kill, but in part 7, when the couple's in the van, they're having sex, and he hears Jason out there, and he thinks it's his friend, and he's like, "Hey, buddy!" And he's holding and he's blowing the thing, so that's gonna come into play, and Jason eventually, I think it's the girl though, shoves the noisemaker right into her eye, and you hear her go as. I loved it because it would never make that sound going into someone's head.
That's awesome.
And so I'm throwing that as an honorable mention just for the sound effect.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, and even though it was poorly done, I always kind of liked and I used it in some music video thing I did for film school when they in part 8 also when he takes the guitar and slams it on her face. Even though if you watch it now, you see the blood splatter before it hits. But
oh man,
I'll give it a pass. But anyway, yeah. So that one's kind of funny too. But
all right. So what was our beer pairing this week?
Okay, beer pairing. Now this one was kind of based on the topic at hand. This is a no-brainer. It's Sierra Nevada Beer Camp. The fact that it has camp in the title, I mean, what's more synonymous with Friday the 13th?
And it's very easy to find, and one of my favorites. I always get the beer camp every year because it changes. If you don't know, it changes year to year.
Right, and Sierra Nevada, I don't consider them really a craft beer anymore, but this year actually they've kind of reinvented themselves for this beer camp edition where they've collaborated with 12 different breweries to each make a signature beer camp, and they're going around in festivals actually, but they're selling it in a 12-pack. I just found out before we started to record that actually supposedly our local beverage places, there's about 3 right in the area, they all 3 supposedly have this thing. So tomorrow I am going to go out and try and obtain this because one of them is a collaboration with Treehouse, which is a very hard to get beer. Most of the time when we get it, we usually can obtain 1 can as they allow it, and we had to be part of the beer club to get it. They make a great thing, and I think they do the IPA in there. It's the East Coast versus West Coast IPA they do. But some of the beer companies are in there, like the one that our good friend Matt from Yorkshire, Ventinus, has one of the collaborations. Avery does a collaboration with them. Like I said, Treehouse, and a couple of the other ones. McKellar does one. Some you've heard of, some are really I've never heard of, but there's one interesting one with ginger and cayenne pepper. So
yeah, I want to try that.
Yeah, so that one I'm all about. I may just pick up 2. So in case you can't find one, Tim, when you come visit, we'll have it for you.
Yeah, I will definitely look tomorrow because we have a place up the street that usually carries. They usually have a pretty good stock of the beer camps when they arrive. So we'll see if they.
Yeah, in Sierra Nevada, they just do a solid job, so you can't go wrong.
Yeah, you can never go wrong. I mean, they're like I said, like you said, they're kind of mainstream now, but I've never had really one of their beers that I didn't like at some level.
Exactly. They just do a solid job, and and the best thing is they're a good beer, and it's usually never hard to find.
Right. So the trivia question for last week was there were 2 actors who turned down the role of Quint in Jaws, and the answer is Lee Marvin and Sterling Hayden.
Yes. And Lee Marvin, obviously, from various action movies, and Sterling Hayden, if you're not sure, the nerd in me will tell you he's probably known for a lot of other things, but I know him from 9 to 5 as Russell Tinsworthy. But I'll tell you, I don't know if you guys remember last week when we were giving that trivia question out, our super fan Amanda started to chuckle when she saw the answer, because when she saw the words Lee Marvin, which of course, obviously that episode last week was very highly we talked about Richard Dreyfuss a lot, and of course he played Dr. Leo Marvin, and What About Bob, which we mentioned a few times, and so that gave her a chuckle. So we did promise you we'd go into that joke once we gave the answer, so there that is. That's why she had a laugh.
So the trivia question for this week is, in the original script for Friday the 13th, Jason was not the first choice as the name. What was his original name?
Yes, that I discovered today when I was going through some different facts about the film, and it's so funny if you guys get the answer to this, you're gonna be like, all right, that just does not, it's not the same impact, and thank God the Victor Miller who wrote it was pretty adept at realizing that just does not play as well as Jason, and because he basically thought the name that was originally in there was not scary, and it's not, and it's funny, Jason you would not think of as a scary name until now, but he basically named Jason because it was a bully in his high school, so that's how he got Jason. So,
well, I always thought like whoever came up with Freddy was like taking a big risk,
right? Because like everyone knows Freddy is like a fun guy. Hey, Freddy,
yeah.
Freddy's your pal,
Yeah.
Okay, and now obviously about all our social media sites. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, Gmail. All our different,
and I'm posting those links in our show notes, by the way.
Yes.
So you guys will see our email addresses and all that, so we don't have to waste time on the show.
And so with that gives a perfect segue. I want to give a shout out to one of our new listeners. Her name is Cody. She actually messaged us on Facebook and told us that she just discovered our show, and she really enjoyed it. And it's great because she's giving us all this interaction. She gave us some. She actually posted on our Instagram page. She hashtagged. Water Zombies, if you remember from our Creep Show episode, which was one of our Kickstarters. She referenced back, so I guess she's going through the backlog of our things, and she sent them suggestions, and I gotta tell you, that's exactly what we're looking for. We love that kind of stuff, because we just sit here talking, and there's no interaction, and it's like we at some level we're like, all right, is anyone actually listening? So this is great. So we want to give her a big shout out. So thank you for listening, Cody, and keep coming up with the interaction for us, and always give us some suggestions and stuff as we want to keep this as listener interactive as possible.
Right. Yeah, we can see the downloads, and we can see where people are downloading from. But in the end, it's just numbers.
Right.
If we don't hear from people, it's just numbers on the screen, so it's hard to really make that connection that people are out there listening. But while we're talking about that, don't forget our contest. That's still going on. Leave us an iTunes review. You're automatically entered to win a Blu-ray and your choice of a movie for us to review on a future episode. And right now, I think we've only got 4 reviews.
Yeah.
So you've got a pretty darn good chance of winning. So if you want to take a shot at that, just leave us an iTunes review. I know it takes a few minutes, but hey, for a free Blu-ray, it's worth a shot.
And just even if it's something like, hey, guys, great show, or hey, you guys stink, anything.
Yeah, you don't have to write a novel.
Yeah.
Just a one-liner, and a star rating would be perfect.
Yeah, and even if you bash us in a review, you're not going to be exempt from the contest. We're not like that.
No, yeah.
You may get Paul Blart as the movie, though. But.
Yeah, we'll just punish you with the film. No, we're just kidding. And yeah, so like we said, the Summer Slaycation series will continue next week with another huge franchise movie. We are like we have hinted at on the show. I'm headed to New York soon, so there may be some scheduling that we have to work around, but we're going to try our best to get shows out in a timely fashion. And
there may be some surprise bonus stuff thrown in there with Tim's visit to New York, because I have a bunch of cool horror themed places to take him to. So there should be a lot of stuff being, at least on the social media. If not, maybe a little bonus mini live episode of us or something somewhere. You never know. So keep an eye out for all our social media platforms, because we'll definitely, if there's anything happening, we'll tweet it out or Facebook it out for you guys so you know what's going on.
Yep, for sure.
And so actually, before we go, Tim, in honor of our summer slaycation, I wanted to I really did some research on Friday the 13th, because we've seen it so many times. So I wanted to see if I could unearth a really cool fact. And while digging, I discovered something very interesting. So I noticed that originally we had kind of touched on this, how it was so unique to have a female killer revealed at the end. That wasn't always the case. As I looked in here, I found that originally Elias Voorhees was supposed to make an appearance much earlier, and he was going to be the protagonist at the end of this film. And I said, wow. So did a little more digging, and through the magic and I used all our Civil Gore cachet, so to speak, and I've uncovered the screen test of Elias Voorhees. And
oh my gosh, this is like an exclusive.
It is, and you will not believe who was up for that role. Our brand new friend, Richard Dreyfuss.
No way.
Yes, I can't believe it. So we're gonna play this clip for you. Because this took every ounce of like I said, every ounce of pull, name dropping, whatever I could to secure this. And I don't think it's ever been released anywhere else on any kind of media other than maybe the dark interwebs. But so I'm gonna play this for you guys right now. So I think I sent it to Tim, so he should have the file, so he can cue this up for us.
Yep. Okay. Here we go.
Did you know a young boy drowned the year before those two others were killed? The counselors weren't paying any attention. They were making love while that young boy drowned. His name was Jason. I was working that day it happened, preparing meals here. I was the cook. Jason should have been watched every minute. He wasn't a very good swimmer. We can go now, dear. You let him drown. You never paid any attention. Did you even call the Coast Guard? Look what you did to him.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right? See, Civil Gore comes through with, just when you think that we're just an average, everyday horror movie podcast, we come up with that gem, right?
We got a scoop. Yeah, that'll definitely be on the next Blu-ray release.
I think it has to be. So see, Tim, it was a blessing in disguise that you did not buy that set.
That's right, because you definitely want that one with that deleted scene.
Yeah, because now you're going to get
like a screen test or whatever.
Yeah, now you'll get like the Richard Dreyfuss edition of it,
Yeah. All right, guys, so we're going to head out.
As you probably had enough of us. This is definitely one of our longer shows.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Well, covering a franchise like this, it had to be.
Right,
so
right.
We had to do it justice. So we'll see you back here next week.
Yep. Take it easy, guys.